So, I've now played 100 hours of Battlefield 6, from labs to the capture event, and now 80 hours of the beta. It's clear to me that this game has a good base to start with, one of the cleanest betas we've ever had, but there are definitely some things that need to change or be balanced. In this video, I wanted to cover my biggest annoyances, unbalanced weapons, and little changes that can make a big difference. If you agree with my thoughts, then give it a like, and leave your own feedback in the comments below. But let's jump right in, shall we? So first of all, weapon and gadget balance. Now most of the guns felt powerful with the right attachments. Every gun basically becomes a laser beam. Overall, the time to kill felt a little too fast, with some weapons having a time to kill around 200 milliseconds, and that's without headshots. The M4A1 carbine, for instance, was a 4-shot kill anywhere on the body within 10 meters. Some adjustments per weapon and maybe limb damage certainly need to be made. Strangely though, with everything else being so manageable, I thought the DMRs had a little bit too much recoil to the point where they were almost impossible to use effectively. And don't get me started on the only pistol in the game. Switching to your sidearm is faster than reloading. Not in this game, where for some reason switching to your pistol also has a delay to firing even if the gun's out. And then the pistol damage is so low, visual recoil so high, you're dead several times over before you can even do anything. If you played Recon and Sniper, then you would have had this painful experience many times over the beta. Battlefield 5 weapon switching is definitely a good reference for how it should feel from primary to secondary. Now I think everyone can agree the shotgun was a bit too easy to use past close range. That definitely needs wider spread and lower damage from further away. But in my opinion, the most overpowered weapon in this beta was the thermobaric grenade launcher. Damage on hit, damage on splash, damage over time, and a stun effect that lasts 3 seconds, and it takes less than 3 seconds to reload it, meaning the player can't move fast enough before they fire a second one and instantly kill them. It was already insanely strong, but someone decided that a stun effect would be a good addition. Personally, I think the damage on both grenade launchers needs to be reduced slightly, longer reload, and complete removal of the stun effect. And obviously they will fix being able to use 2 launchers at the same time, and that's for both Engineer and Assault. I will say it felt a bit too easy to use the launchers on Engineer as well. The reload speed on the anti-air missile was so fast, you could fire 3 at a jet in one flyby before they could even get out of range. And on the subject of gadgets, the Recon gadgets need help. First of all, when you place a spawn beacon or a motion sensor, it would often fall through the floor. Secondly, the motion sensor feels so underwhelming to use. Awkward, slow animation to put down, measly range of the scan barely even covers one room, only scans players that were moving. I basically didn't bother putting them down because it felt like a waste of time. I think you should be able to throw down the motion sensor a short distance and it just sticks to the surface. And now you're telling me that the Recon class is losing the spawn beacon to Assault? Genuinely, I'm not sure why anyone would want to play Recon if they take away the spawn beacon apart from the UAV ability. I feel like the Recon class needs to be given something in return for losing the spawn beacon. Even giving Recon the mortar that's coming instead of to support would make more sense. The support class is supposed to be on the front line resupplying and reviving, and they want to give that class the mortar to go and sit in spawn. At the moment, it does feel a bit like the Assault class is a bit of a super soldier with 2 primary weapons. Someone from my stream suggested that maybe the attachment points should be shared across both weapons if they decide to take an extra primary instead of a gadget. That way, they can't technically outshoot someone who has 1 primary with more attachments, and they have to choose where to pick attachments on each weapon. However, I will say that the adrenaline syringe on the Assault class feels barely worth using. The animation is way too long to activate and gets you killed. I never really felt the effects of using it, and it only lasts 3 seconds. That's what she said. I only ever used it to run faster between safe areas with a knife out to feel any difference. Secondly, the ultimate abilities on classes felt underwhelming and hard to notice. Yes, the Engineer overcharge ability and the Recon UAV made an obvious difference, but using the Assault or Support ability, I wasn't really sure if anything even happened. I often didn't even notice that I had it available. It might need a more obvious UI alert that it's available, and also when it's currently active. Now, I know people will want to talk about open versus closed weapons in BF6. Did I enjoy open weapons? Yes. Did I like closed weapons? Yes. The issue with closed weapons right now is that because of the character design, you can't tell what class people are using anyway. So even if the person is using a class with a specific weapon type, there is no way I'm able to discern what they're about to kill me with and react when the classes look how they do now. 3 of the classes look almost identical at medium range. They would have to overhaul the character design to make locked weapons work, and I just don't think that's going to happen. What I will say again is that having open weapons did not change my enjoyment of the game, but I also understand that it's taken away a major portion of the Battlefield identity. Now, one of the biggest issues that's close to my heart is the balance between attackers and defenders on the attack and defend modes like Rush and Breakthrough. I didn't lose a single breakthrough defense on Cairo or Liberation Peak out of probably 40 plus games on defense. And that's not a brag, that's just how broken it is. It seems to me that the defenders are able to get way too far into the attackables playable area. On both maps, the defenders are allowed to basically flank the attackers on all sides, and in some cases look directly into their spawn. Basically, I think the attackers need a major increase to the area that they can be in as they're pushing the objective. And then on some rush maps, the objective is quite literally on the border of the defender's spawn point. So even if the attacking team wipes the defenders, they're back to the point in 10 seconds. I assume they've already made changes behind the scenes, but it was a rough experience as attacker on the beta, especially when playing without a dedicated squad. Next up, I think one of the biggest problems for me was footsteps. But not necessarily the volume of footsteps, but the consistency. Sometimes I can hear a player running through a building or alongside the next alleyway 25 meters away at almost superhuman levels. However, sometimes I'll literally hear 2 footsteps or none at all and get shot in the back or front with no warning. And this would happen regardless of the other sounds around me. I'd be completely still on a point with no one shooting, and a guy would appear out of nowhere sprinting around a corner making no noise. And sometimes you would surprise each other, both sprinting around. I think there's maybe something wrong with moving between different buildings, sectors, or potentially height differences. But as I said, the base volume doesn't need to increase, but something just doesn't seem right. Now, a major part of Battlefield gameplay is revives and resupplying. And I honestly felt that revives still weren't being rewarded with enough points versus kills. I got 60 revives in one round of Gibraltar, and even with 30 kills on top of that, I wasn't even close to the 2 or 3 assault players at the top of the scoreboard with an extra 10 kills. And why are revives, captures and resupplies not listed on the scoreboard? Surely we should be celebrating players playing the objective, and it feels that there's enough space for it too. And by the way, the assist counts as kills are not seeming to count at the moment, so that needs changing. On the subject of revives, I did feel like sometimes the range of the defibrillator was a little bit too far. Like a revive that I'd usually get on BF3 or 4 was just out of reach, and not having a sound effect for a successful revive damaged my soul a little bit. Also, when you're downed, I don't mind being able to put a marker down, but a full 3D spot on enemy players, that seems a bit insane. It also felt like when you're downed, many players able to revive just didn't seem aware that you could be helped, and it feels like there could be more of a notification that someone very close by could easily be revived. They have at least added the mechanic where you can take health from a support player who hasn't put down their supply bag, but why can't we take ammo from them as well? And talking of the supply bag, I'm sure many of you had the experience of waiting on the supply bag for more than 10 seconds as an engineer to fill a new rocket up, only for the medic to place the bag somewhere else away from you, instantly losing all that progress of getting ammo back. It definitely needs to remember your progress or slowly degrade over time, although I am a fan of grenades and explosives taking a longer time to regenerate to stop the spam. Moving on to the UI and minimap. I felt like the UI is in a decent spot for BF6, however I'm not sure why we're not allowed to move the elements around at this point. At least being able to make the minimap slightly bigger. I'd also love to be able to have my health bar in the middle of the screen, and also maybe move where the score counters are. Secondly, why is the automatic minimap zooming not able to be turned off? When you enter buildings it zooms in and out, but it's actually quite disorientating more than it is helpful. The UI menu for weapon loadouts is once again a little too convoluted. You click the weapon twice or 3 times to change attachments, but you can also right click it, but it doesn't tell you that. I also wasn't a huge fan of the scopes that were available in the beta. Nothing over 6x. I'm sure this will change, but surely we should be able to change the reticles on the scopes themselves. Both the long-range scopes use dots instead of crosses without mil bars. I don't mind the models of the scopes, but the crosshair designs need to be customizable. Oh, and when you're changing attachments and testing them in the firing range, you should definitely have the option for unlimited ammo with no reloads. Lastly, one of the things that I feel needs work is the parachute mechanic. Somehow, Call of Duty feels like it has a smoother parachute than Battlefield, even though they invented it. You cut the parachute and defy gravity in midair, and when an enemy's flying through the air at max velocity, they move so fast, their character basically lags across the screen. It just feels clunky and weird right now. And you might think with all these negatives that I didn't enjoy the game. However, I actually had an incredible time with this beta. Amazing visuals, audio, and gameplay across the board. Performance was consistent, and I didn't have a single crash or lag in 80 hours. Lucky for some. My enjoyment was only slightly damaged once people started abusing the roof exploits, but that was to be expected. Did you yourself find any major issues? Can you still enjoy the game even if they go in the direction of open weapons? And does this game have big potential for you either way? Let me know down in the comments. If you agree with what I've said in this video, then be sure to leave a like or a dislike if you don't, and maybe subscribe if you want more Battlefield 6 moaning in future. Either way, I hope this game finally scratches that itch that we've been waiting so many years for. And now, all we need to do is just wait for the game to actually come out in 2 months. See you in the next one. Cheers.